2 years after Miku's release, on Valentine's Day 2009, Krypton Future Media gave Vocaloid fans a big surprise. Miku was still the most popular Vocaloid at the time, but because she was the first Japanese Vocaloid to use the Vocaloid 2 engine, her voice bank was showing its age. It was not as refined as later Vocaloids such as Luca or Gumi, and Krypton knew they had to do something about that. Vocaloid was growing from a simple franchise into an empire, and Miku was its ambassador. A lesser company might have tossed her aside and replaced her, but Krypton knew better. The big surprise would come as an announcement that Miku was to eventually receive 6 new voice banks as part of a package named Hatsune Miku APPEND. Essentially a group of expansion packs, Miku APPEND took the Vocaloid concept a step further by showing that Vocaloids could continue to be developed even after they were released. Though Rin and Len received their Act 2 patch, that was a patch in the truest sense, intended to fix problems. Miku APPEND, on the other hand, was designed to expand her possibilities. Miku APPEND was not a replacement for Miku, and neither was it an update. Miku APPEND's new voice banks, which would come to be known as Solid, Dark, Light, Soft, Sweet, and Vivid, were new voice banks that would be installed into the original Miku program and offer Miku users new voice banks to use, in addition to her original voice bank. Each new voice bank was sold separately, and altogether added up to around her original price. Released April 30th, 2010, each of the new voice banks was voiced by Miku's original voice provider, Ms. Fujita Saki, and were intended to encompass the full depth of her singing abilities. Each new voice bank captured a particular facet of her voice, giving Miku users much more versatility. At least, that was the intent. Despite the value of the new voice banks and the new options they offered, they simply were not as popular as her original voice, and the APPEND did not do as well commercially as you'd imagine. It was still successful, but it did not echo the explosive popularity of her original voice. Even so, the APPEND concept showed a lot of promise, and Miku had nowhere to go but up.
ついてる君のためにどれだけ涙流してみてもこの色の海に気づいてもくれないのさまよう雪を行き場をなくして震えていつ日なければ君の笑顔が変わったの声を奪えばどうなることもできるけどそばにいても準備 日か旅立つさためにあること捨てるように出口のない砂漠をさまよい続けた蜃気楼の彼方に見えたのは夢かうつつか遠い憧れか少女の書きます急に降り出した大粒ひどい雨雨や鳥の屋根鬼がかりの傘君濡れないように少しが溢れる私はそっとその教えてみさわんだ見たことのない世界君が語り出すおとぎの国の話で踊って連れてってほしい本当は怖いんだ夢が覚める夏がさわんだ流れる道の光何もこうせどうせ人に響き回る手を取って連れてってほしいココナッツの甘い香り君のファンタジックな奇跡時を止めちゃうような奇跡
Zero G's Prima was the first English Vocaloid to be considered a fair success, and Zero G felt they could replicate that success. They followed the same formula as they did with Prima, but this time with a male classical singer, and Tonio was released July 14, 2010. Like Prima, he was designed for and marketed to the professional musician market, not the amateur market the way Sonica was. He is a baritone and tenor singer who is best with lower notes but can climb to higher notes without losing much quality. He's intended to be used as a partner with Prima. Unfortunately for Tonio, he was released almost 6 months after his official announcement, which collided his release with the new Japanese Vocaloid. You would think that the English and Japanese Vocaloid markets would be separate, but many Vocaloid users are Japanese, and this affected his sales. He never reached the same level of success as Prima, despite his high quality. Had he been released on schedule, he would have done better, as he would have had no competition. This idea gave birth to the term Big Al syndrome, meaning a Vocaloid that goes far beyond its initial development schedule. And also like Prima, he is kind of locked into classical music and operatic style songs, so he is not very versatile.
Radiates deep in my heart from my echoing of you. It's that from the twinkling in your eyes. As instance later, it movement of the flowing emotions that halo of yours is so brilliant. It's not okay, someone close to the rhythm of our roots. Between us thousands, not flying only it's the sky.
ready to accept reality. It can be so hard to I can't breathe.
I tried to hurry up, cause I thought that you were there. I pulled myself to tears, cause I pushed myself too hard. But you never will take her. I have to accept you, Mom, and there is no way but you. Somewhere you are. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what's big is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, kiss me.
As I said, Tonio's delays caused him to be released around the same time as the Japanese Vocaloid, which negatively affected his sales in Japan. That Vocaloid was Lily, released August 25, 2010. She was distributed by Internet Co., but developed by a joint effort of Yamaha and a company new to Vocaloid development, AtH Management Company. Lily is voiced by Masuda Yuri, the vocalist of a Japanese musical group, MOVE, and her character was designed by Kei, who, as you might recall, did the illustrations for Miku, Rin, Len, and Luca. Interestingly, images of Lily appeared before her Vocaloid development was announced, because the character herself was intended to be a sort of anime persona for Masuda. MOVE released several music albums where they covered anime music, and Lily was on the cover of these albums before she was a Vocaloid. Lily was introduced as codename Lily in a magazine in May 2010, and merchandising for her began to appear before her software was even released, making her the first non-Krypton Future Media Vocaloid to receive such high levels of advertising and promotion. She's also the first Vocaloid to exist as a separate character before becoming a Vocaloid. Though maybe there was an Elvis impersonating Frankenstein's monster before Big Al came around. Lily was the third Vocaloid to be produced by Internet Co., but she does not carry the poid suffix the way gakpoid and megpoid do, likely because she was already an existing character. She has a high-quality voice bank which works best in the lower octaves, and she can reach some of the lowest notes in the female Vocaloid 2 range without issue, but she was not intended to be of the same quality as Gakpo or Gumi. Her voice is sometimes described as nasal or metallic, and she has trouble with pronouncing consonants alone. She was intended to be used either for guest appearances or for playing backup to other Vocaloids rather than headline the way Gakpo and Gumi were designed to. Despite this, Lily became relatively popular in her time period, overshadowing Tonio and the next Vocaloid I will discuss. When you're trying something for the first time, all you want is a success. You don't care how or why, you just want your venture to succeed. For Yamaha, the Vocaloid franchise was almost nothing but successes, and when you're in that kind of situation, the specter of failure looms large. So Yamaha approached another company, B-Plats Incorporated, and worked with them on a new concept for a Vocaloid. The result of that partnership was VY1, which was released on September 1st, 2010. VY1 was announced for the first time less than a month earlier, with no advance notice, and it began accepting pre-orders immediately. What sets VY1 apart from the other Japanese Vocaloids is that VY1 is kind of, in my own words, minimalistic. VY1 has no defined gender or identity, and it is the first of the Japanese Vocaloids to not have these things. Even Leon and Lola had defined genders, but VY1 is neither male nor female. Yamaha did this with the intent to give the musicians producing music with VY1 the greatest amount of artistic flexibility. The musicians can imagine VY1 to be anything they want it to be. Its voice at default settings is typically described as feminine, but it can be altered to provide more masculine results as well. VY1 was later released as iPhone and iPad compatible versions, making it the least expensive Vocaloid package. This meant that though VY1 suffered in popularity initially because of Lily, it had the advantage of being accessible by many more people, especially first-time Vocaloid users, and so VY1 has formed its own niche.
「天の川